In this video, we are looking at binomial products involving surds. So surd expressions involving brackets can be expanded in the same way as algebraic expressions of the form a, b plus c in brackets, or a plus b in the front bracket, c plus d in the back bracket. Now, if you remember, we use a system called arrows, where you draw the arrows which show the multiplications that are occurring. So I'll do an example here. In this case, we have the a bracket b plus c bracket expression, and we're going to expand it. So the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite it just down here. The next thing I want to do is actually draw my arrows to show the multiplications that are occurring. So I know there's a multiplication there and there. Now, for the first example, we have root 5 times 3 root 2. Remember, surds only multiply by surds. So that 3 is not affected, nothing happens to it. So I can rewrite that down. The next thing we have is root 5 times root 2. And with multiplication, it's simple, just 5 times 2 is 10. So I know we've got root 10. The next thing we've got by our bottom arrow is root 5 times negative root 5. It's important to remember that this negative here is connected to the thing to the right of it. So in our case, this is actually negative root 5. So because we have one negative, our answer is going to be negative, so I can put that there. And remember, root 5 times root 5 essentially cancels out the root symbols, so we get 5. Now the reason for that, if I do it over here, is if we have root 5 times root 5, we have 5 times 5, which is 25, so root 25, which is in fact 5. That's why that makes sense, and the root symbols just cancel out. So that would be our answer to that expansion. We've drawn our front arrows to show what's going on. We've made sure that we're keeping our second term as a negative because only one of them was a negative. And there you go, we got 3 root 10 minus 5. So if we go down here to this next one, we have the expression in the form of bracket a plus b, bracket c plus d. So again, I'm going to rewrite it just so I have some room. And then we draw our arrows. So we know this is multiplying over here, but then we also know it's multiplying over here. Now remember, this can be called crab claws because it takes the form of a crab claw there. So there we have 2 times 4 root 2, 2 times root 3. So we'll start with our top first. So remember, before where I said surds multiply by surds, in a similar way, the coefficients, which is the front term, multiplies by the other coefficient. So in this case, we have 7 times 4 for our this, if I can, for this arrow here, this one here. Alright, so 7 times 4. And then we have root 3 times root 2. We then do our top arrow. There's no other front coefficients. They're both positive terms, so we leave with 7. And then root 3 times root 3 becomes 3, so I can put times 3 in there. We then do our bottom, our first smaller blue arrow, and it's 2 times 4 root 2. Because the 2 is a normal number, we only multiplying it by the 4. So we get 8 root 2, because there's no other surds, so times by the root 2. We then do our longer blue arrow, and it's 2 times root 3. Because they're both different things, we can just say it's 2 root 3. The next thing we want to look for is we want to tidy it up, and we can tidy this up here. So 28 root 6 stays. This becomes 21. 8 root 2 also remains the same, and 2 root 3 remains the same. And there you go. So there are some special cases where we have special binomial products. So these special cases where a formula can be used to find the expansion. And below you can see these cases. So we have a plus b squared. That will get us that. We can use these formulas then to find a solution. Alternatively, you can also just go a plus b, and then draw your arrows to get the same thing. So if I did this, if you find the arrow systems easier, you can do this. So obviously if I did the top arrow, the small one, that's a squared. We then have AB, we do the bottom arrow, AB, and then b squared. If we join the two ABs, the common terms there, so here, these are common terms, so we can add them. We end up with a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So you notice that we can still use our arrow method to solve these. It might be slightly longer, but if you feel more comfortable doing that, feel free to. Otherwise, if you can memorize those formula there, you can simply use those. One formula to note and remember is as a good one is this one here. It's called difference of two squares. It is commonly used and it's a good one to remember. So we'll do a recap. Remember, you always should draw your multiplication arrows to avoid small errors. You don't have to. If you think you can just go ahead and do it, that's fine. I just think it's a good idea so you avoid these small errors that sometimes can occur with surds. If your expansion is a special binomial, then you can use the formulas. Feel free if you can remember them. Alternatively, you can expand using the regular arrow method as I showed you just previously.